Intel's 15th gen is here, and it's not actually called 15th gen, it's called Intel Core Ultra 200S series. Just forget all the previous naming, it's all new. Like the architecture, and there's some new things for creators, like the new media engines, new iGPU finally is different, and there's some other new things that are going on. Very interesting direction Intel is taking this, and by the end of this video, you're actually gonna see the actual processes. They're gonna arrive any minute now, so I'm just gonna record this and hope that the doorbell is gonna go ding dong and they're gonna come here. Like this sponsored segment, ding dong. Licensing Windows is cheap and easy with whokeys.com, and if you use the code TN20, you get an extra discount. Complete the purchase, copy the key, and paste it to the activation settings. And you're all done. Also check out their Microsoft Office 19 license and use the same code TN20 for the extra discount. Check out whokeys.com in the video description below. So this is the briefing that I was with Intel a few days ago. And there's very interesting things that I want to run through with you. And especially as a creator, because I'm going to skip through most of the gaming stuff because that's boring to me. But I want to see what's actually changed with the CPUs, what's there, different. So basically the Arrow Lake program, that's what it's called, Arrow Lake. For mobile CPUs, the same generation is called Lunar Lake. But this is Arrow Lake, okay? So for desktop, their main thing is performance per watt. And this was one of the most mentioned things on the keynote, that they're trying to reduce the package power by 40%, which is obviously what everyone was moaning about the 13th, 14th gen. And they're still hoping to gain 15% increase in the different generations. So that's usually like a new generation, 15% gain in multi-threaded performance. While maintaining gaming performance, don't care about that. They're hoping to reduce package temperatures by 10 degrees. That is going to be massive. And there is a new iGPU that they're also saying, obviously AI that everyone's talking about, but we'll see how much people actually using this. But I'm interested to see how they are going to deliver. So the main point that they're trying to push across here is that they're trying to get the same performance on Raptor Lake. So Raptor Lake refresh, Raptor Lake R was the 14900K. This is a 14900K unopened package. They're hoping to get the same performance at half the power. So we'll see how that's going to go. But if they deliver that, that's very impressive because the 14900K was very, very power hungry. They're actually trying to beat the multi-threaded performance with 24 cores. If you remember, the 14900K actually had 32 cores, okay? So there was 8 plus 16 E cores, but now they're trying to do that with 8 plus 16, but this 8 is not multi-threaded anymore because that one had two threads per core, so that's why you had 16 threads in there. But now we only have 8 plus 16 equals 24 cores. They're saying XE-LPG for new codecs, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. They did mention that there's something new that's going on in there. This is like a one pager. What they're trying to do different here is they have the E cores and then they have P cores. They're running like a different architecture, okay? So one of them is on Lion Cove and the other one Skymount, okay? And then the E cores on Skymount have gained 32% uplift on compared to the previous generation, okay? And the P cores only 9%. They talked about how the cache is actually changed between the different cores, but the cache is just very technical and we don't see how that's going to really perform well on a new architecture. But what's happening here is that now they're lying the E cores in between the P cores, as you can see there. Previously, it was laid out that you had all the P cores, lined up, and then you had all the E cores just on the bottom. But someone on the actual live chat when we had the briefing asked that why aren't the E and P cores lined up just like that anymore? But this is because they have reduced the temperature when you lie them out, kind of spreading them out. So you have the P cores all the way around here, then the E cores kind of in the middle there of these. It's better for thermal performance because you don't have a single spot that's getting very, 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 very hot, but you actually have a lot more spread out performance. Now then, the iGPU, which they call the XE GPU or XE LPG graphics architecture. So this is what, comes from Arc and so on. So they've taken like a little slice from the Arc cake. This has finally vector engines inside, but what interests me is this here, which is the XE Media Engine or decode. I'm hoping that we still have 2x of these media engines inside like we had previously, because that was very, very good. But Intel said on their briefing that for the first time, these XE LPG media engines offer hardware support for Sony's new XAVC 4K and 8K codec. Now, I've tried to ask Intel what the heck does this mean, because we already know that the XAVC is already supported, because XAVC is just a wrapper. The codec is actually H.264 or 5. So I want to know, is it H.264 or 5? Because XAVC can be like kind of, this is Sony's own version or a container, how they use the codec. So I want to know, are we finally getting hardware support for, let's say, H.264 10-bit 422? Because that would be absolutely amazing if we did that. Or what are the new codecs that are going to be supported? We're going to have to find that out. Stick around, hit that like button and subscribe. For the live test, we're actually going to check all the codecs out and see how this is. But this apparently is the world's first time where this is supported on any platform, apparently, but the support will come in Premiere Pro. So if you're editing in Premiere Pro, this is going to be exciting CPU. So what's this exactly here? I don't exactly know. Then we have AI. Obviously, everyone has to talk about AI, and everything's going to start to change yet. And I believe more and more things are going to use the AI, but we'll have to see how this goes. Now, interestingly, because the MPU on this enthusiast desktop CPU is not powerful enough, if you build yourself a PC, it's not actually a Copilot Plus compatible. So you're not going to be able to use the Copilot Plus. I don't know how many people use that. That's another question. And, you know, whether you can use it offline is another question. And is this actually an AI feature if you can't use it offline? That's very fair questions that I have. But they're just showing here that AI size balance with enthusiast configuration. So most likely you're going to run with one of their GPUs or some NVIDIA AMD GPUs that also offer you know, a lot of AI capabilities. And as you can see, the way they've put together their CPU is actually glued together with different nodes and chips. So they are actually, if I remember and listen correctly, they're using TSMC's chips. So they're not producing their own chips, maybe one of these, because all of these are all different, okay? And some of these have a little bit more expensive and, you know, smaller nanometer transistor nodes, and then some of them higher on and so on. But as far as I know, all of them come from TSMC, which is kind of a little bit of an interesting situation here. Intel, previous generations, have been using their own chips, but then they haven't been able to make them very power efficient. So they went to TSMC's to actually use lower processor nodes, you know, chips. They are building their massive fabs in US and maybe some other places in the country, but they're going through a very interesting and a little bit more difficult kind of situation. The company's losing money, market share, and they're gonna have to resort to making, you know, good chips by going to actually taking some of these chips from TSMC, which is not good for the competition, because now TSMC provides chips for Apple, AMD, Intel, and even NVIDIA, okay? So come on. We can't let TSMC rule the whole market, because that means that we're going to have more expensive products. So I'm really hoping that Intel can build quickly their fabs, get back on their feet and start producing their own chips as well. So we have actually chips that go down in price. So then, which are the CPUs that are going to be released? There's going to be 5 CPUs that are going to release. We'll start from the bottom. Firstly, KF, if you remember that. F means no iGPU, okay? And we have 6 P cores, 8 E cores, and there's no multi-threading. There's only single threading on the P cores. None of that anymore, just cores and efficiency cores. So AMD is now the only one who actually uses multi-threading on some of their P cores, not Intel anymore. The boost clock is 5.2 gigahertz, and if you can see, I'll point 1.5 because these two are exactly the same, just one of them will have the iGPU there as well. This one doesn't. and everything else is the same. We have 4 GPU cores in some of them. And as you can see, it's the same iGPU on all of these different models. The NPUs here are also the same. As you can see, all of them exactly the same. What's changed is the cores and the clock speeds. So obviously every single one of the chips out of the factory came out as the Ultra 9 285K, which means it's unlocked and you can overclock it, but it comes with 8 P cores and 16 E cores. And then these lower ones, Ultra 7, they are just cut down versions of the top one here to actually have 20 cores instead of 24 cores. The boost clock is 5.5 on the Ultra 7, 5.2 on the Ultra 5 that I mentioned already, and 5.7 on the Ultra 9. Now, if you remember, this here, the 14900K actually boosted up to 6 gigahertz, okay? As you can see, the gigahertz war is over. Now we're talking about efficiency, but the interesting thing is gigahertz don't actually matter. The most important thing is IPC, instructions per clock, which means how much work can it actually do at that speed. So it looks like 5.7 gigahertz max is actually faster, if you remember, 9% gain in the single threaded workloads than actual 14900K. So a landmark reduction in power. So what does that exactly mean? How much power are we saving and where are we saving this? So here's some productivity power consumptions. So as you can see on the top there, we have 14900K that has this line there. And then this new Intel Core Ultra 285K is, in ProCyan Office productivity, 44% lower. And we're saving 42% in AI computer vision, because obviously 14900K in this one, there should be an asterisk. There is no NPU in there, so obviously this one is gonna win in there. But the interesting thing is, in single core workload in Cinebench R23, the new Core Ultra is 42% lower. So we're getting very close to half the power, but the same performance. And this Zoom video call obviously hopefully uses the NPU as well, which is 58% lower power consumption. Now things get spicy because we have the AMD 9950X in here. The blue is 285K, and then here the red one is the 9950X. So looking at the 3D Mark CPU profile, we can see that the new Core Ultra seems to be 11% faster than the 14900K. Bear in mind that these numbers here on the top are compared to the 14900K, but then the Ryzen is also 3% faster than the 14900K. That means that the gap between these two is roughly only about 8%. In Cinebench, we are faster again than the 14900K and about 6% faster than AMD. In Specs Create 2017, about 4% faster than AMD. And here in Geekbench, looks like Geekbench is actually faster on AMD. So we're actually losing I don't know why I'm saying Intel is losing 3%. Now CPU compete, again, we have the 9950X with 32 threads, and we have Core Ultra 9 285K with 24 threads. We can see that the Geekbench 6 multi-core is 11% faster than the 14900K. Interestingly, they've put 14900K again as the baseline here, because then it looks like we're faster than Ryzen, even though the comparison here is between Ryzen, and that is only here 7%. Again, Specs Create 2017, we are 21% faster. I still keep saying we. Multi-core is 18% faster, but 11% faster than AMD. And then the 3D Mark in multi-threaded, it is 14% faster than AMD. Interestingly, the power has gone lower, but they're still beating AMD 9950X with less cores, and we'll have to see the power consumption there. So they're saying about energy efficiency here on the next slide. And what they're trying to say here is that the Core Ultra 9 285X at this point, while using 125 watts, has the same performance as the 14900K here at 250 watts, which means the same performance at half the power. Now, these curves are like Apple curves here. You don't exactly know like what's over here, okay? And they're kind of just like, okay, line, 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 and you know, you figure out what you want from them. So there's no actual measurement kind of here, how much performance gap is at this point, don't know. Gaming experience, not bothered. I'll just scroll past these. I'm sure someone else is going to talk about that. Go look at Jay's 2 cents or some hardware unboxed, or some guys are going to talk about gaming. They're just saying that the system power has gone down 80 watts at the same game compared to Ultra 9 versus 14900K. Some more gaming spec marks, blah, blah, blah. Now, even though this is a game, this cooler is pretty nice actually. So looking at all of these different games here, I don't really know what these games are and if they're any good or how they go, but looks like on the previous one, this here is the 14900K, but now the new one is 10C, 15C, 16C, up to 17C lower temperature, which is really, really nice, which means that trying to cool this will be a lot easier than before. Probably because the spread out cores and the lower wattage, as always. Now, this is gamer's benchmark, but I think it's still a little bit interesting. If you look at this line here, the red line is actually 9950X. And you can see that basically up to this point, most of the games are exactly the same, whether you go 9950X or Intel Core Ultra 285K. Only a handful of games here are actually higher than AMD. So when AMD comes out with a 3D, you know, X3D, then Intel's going to get beat again. Now, content creation, yes, that's what we are looking for. So what we have here is Puget Bench for After Effects, multi-core performance, and you can see that it's on par with the 7950X 3D. Now, why didn't they use it 9950X? Because they probably knew that this was going to be actually lower on the 9950X and they didn't want to put it there. Now, After Effects, you can use the multi-threaded performance or multi-core performance there for rendering frames. Why is Premiere Pro not in there? If I was in Intel making the slides, you know your iGPU is the best. Why not make an actual Premiere Pro slide here to show that the bar is, you know, somewhere there, up to 40% faster than the competition, because they don't have certain codec support. Why are they not making that? I don't know. Maybe they don't know. Blender, about 5% faster. The 9950X will probably be somewhere there, okay? Geekbench 6 is about 18% faster. Cinebench R24 is about 21% faster. Now, why did they compare this again with that? So it's probably more like 15% faster or maybe 10% faster compared to the 9950X. POV Ray is 30% faster. So here's the conclusion. Gaming performance overall, they've actually lost. So they're saying, look, we're slightly slower, but we want to be lower system power. So they want to be known as the green, the efficient guys, not the power draw anymore. And, you know, let AMD take the power draw title, which is interesting. And they're about 15 degrees lower temperatures, which can be appealing for a lot of people. Powerhouse creation and AI. Top tier performance for creators. Okay, that's what we want to know now. So this is the 9950X, and looking at different codecs here and different what's going on here. Timeline playback, well, let's start to encode and export first of all. So if we look at 8K XAVC to XAVC Ultra HD, so from 8K to 4K, kind of a downscale here. I don't know still if it's H.264 or 5. Most likely the 9950X here is going to have to do it on software, but Intel has hardware support, and that's why it is pretty much 80% faster. 8K XAVC H to XAVC Ultra HD. So I don't know what the H means there. Is it H.264, 5? Not sure. Is 23% faster. Now, when we're looking at timeline playback, look, this is why the hardware accelerated codec is so much better. Look at that. 7.3 times. They have to make a gap in here, because otherwise, you know, the bar would have gone all the way up there. It's so much faster when using the Core Ultra 285K. It's just absolutely ridiculous. As you can see, even 5.7K DNX HR is so much better on Intel, 2.8K on XAVC codec, 8K. AMD, please make some codec support so we can actually get some from you as well. Now, Cinebench is about 10%, POV rate, we already talked about that. Blender, interestingly, as you can see, finally, we're comparing with 9950X, is actually a little bit slower, 7% slower. UL Pro Cyan, 10% slower in the photo editing, 6% faster in the video editing. So if you look at the fine print here, how have they tested this and what is the actual difference of this? So we can see that they've both used RTX 4090. Intel has 32 gigabytes of RAM, which is 6400 megatransfers per second, and AMD has 5600 megatransfers RAM there. Can you see that? That shows that the IMC on Intel is actually faster by 800 megahertz. Interestingly, Intel's latency is 32, whereas AMD's is 28. So they're giving it the best they can, and they're using the same integrated graphics on AMD as well. So it looks like it's very equal systems on both of them. They're using Asus motherboards on both of them, X670E. Maybe it's interestingly not X870E, but it doesn't really matter. Uh-oh, it's here. I told you it's gonna come. Here it is. We'll open that up in a minute. So going back here now, in Premiere Pro, you can see we're only 6% faster than the 9950X. Adobe After Effects 4%, Lightroom Classic actually slower, and Photoshop slower as well. That has not been the case before. Usually, Intel is always faster in Photoshop and Lightroom Classic because of their single-threaded performance. And then workflow, what is this? Play 8K XAVC plus Blender render. And as you can see, it's better because of the efficiency cores and performance cores. Looks like Intel is doing very interesting things there. AI, blah, 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 AI. For me, as a creator, the 8 times faster timeline playback, that's the one that actually makes a huge difference for us. Okay, the 800 series chipset now then. The CPU plus chipset, we have 48 PCIe lanes and then 20 PCIe 5.0 lanes. Is this is the chipset up to 24 PCIe Gen 4. You've got USB 3.2. Ooh, that is good. 5 times 20 gigabit USB option. That's not too bad. It also supports integrated desktop for the first time. Up to 2 ports Thunderbolt 4. Discrete, I don't know what that means. Thunderbolt 5, Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 5.4. That's all the best. It's very good for overclocking and blah, blah, blah as creators. You know, it's not really that important, but what is important is room to max out memory. So finally, our RAM has gone up, you know, the JEDEC spec is up by 800 megahertz. So from 5600 on the 14900K with 6400, which means, and Intel said on the live stream, we found this sweet spot to be somewhere around 8000 megahertz. 8000! I tested the 14900K with the 8000 megahertz. It just didn't work. Now it's supposed to be the sweet spot, which is super, super fast and super nice for creators, because if you're running 4 DIMMs, as like you have over here, we can have up to 192 gigabytes and your 4 DIMMs can run faster, which is very, very good for us as creators. Now, the ECC support is not actually on the Z890 platform, not on the 8 platform. It does come on probably the W890 platform. Okay, the sales start on October 24th, and stay tuned for some of the performance benchmarks. Here's some of the pricing, what they're saying for retail. All of the partners here, they want to say thank you. Interesting thing here, what I'm seeing is processor SKUs and some of the actual specs, what we can see here. Now, take a look at this one. 24 lanes of CPU PCIe lanes. And these CPU PCIe lanes should be PCIe Gen 5, if I'm not mistaken, which means that they've upgraded them from 20 to 25. Now, I don't know if some of them have been taken off by the chipset and how this works, but usually, you know, you had 16 lanes for your GPU, and then you had 4 lanes for your SSD, and you had run out of lanes. But now we have extra 4 lanes, so could we have a secondary Gen 5 M.2? We'll have to see that. Let's see what's inside then. The product reviews are gonna come out on October 24th, okay? Oh, I could show you some of the others, because look, it says, I'm allowed to show you press partner kits with CPUs, content from briefings, publicly provided benchmarks, and performance data material only, not the product reviews. Which means, I didn't know this, but look at that. This is the new chipset then, Z890. I'll be doing a video of that very, very soon. But we've got one from Gigabyte, Aorus. This is the new chipset that they were talking about then. AMD, if you're watching this, can I just ask, why haven't we got any Ryzen 9000 CPUs? Because I would have loved to cover these as well, but we didn't get them. Okay, well, made game ready for anything. Why is it always game? They've slid all over the place. We have a little plaque, screw it on. We've got a little Core Ultra SKUs inside. So here we have the i5 and then the i9. Sorry, it's not i9 anymore, it's Ultra 9, okay. Here's the CPUs. They are slightly different than the other CPUs. I'm gonna show you that. So here I have the 14600K. And let's take a look at the difference between the 14600K, which is on this side, and then the Core Ultra 5 to 45K. So as you can see, when we're measuring the IHS, it actually looks smaller. So if we're looking at the previous IHS there, it was 28.3 millimeters, okay? And then the new one is 25.3. So they've shaved 3 millimeters off. And if we're looking at the other way, the contact that actually makes with the CPU cooler as well in length. So that's 28.3 millimeters. And it's gone actually 1 millimeter longer. So 39.3. But as you can see, they've tried to, even though it's kind of gone even skinnier, not wider, I'm wondering what the actual CPU mechanism on the motherboard is going to be like, and are we still going to get bent CPUs? But looks like they maybe have enforced it a little bit to make it a little bit of a better, stronger, not as bendy as previously. I'm not sure. So we might still need brackets to anti-bending brackets online for $10 to buy them. Another thing that you can see different is these two holes on the bottom on the 14th gen. As you can see, the LGA 1700 had 2 notches on the bottom and 2 on the top, whereas on the Core Ultra now we have only notch on these, both of them sides. And when looking at underneath, there are actually more pins. As you can see on the left side, the Core Ultra has more pins. You can easily see there's a whole row of pins on the side. These are probably like testing pins because they're a little bit different. I don't think motherboard sockets will have them compared to the LGA 1700, and all the like little SMDs in the middle are slightly different as well. And you can see that the middle part has gone a little bit smaller compared to the old generation. So it is different. You can't exchange the CPUs in the socket. So this is the world's first, probably, or UK's first Ultra 5 installation into the socket. That felt different. And if you look at the mechanism here, it still uses a very, very similar thing because it's long. It's probably gonna start bending this. I don't know why they didn't make this like more bigger, but look at that. Now CPU is installed, Core Ultra 9 245K. Interesting, it's not 600 series anymore. The i5 or Ultra 5, I keep saying the wrong thing. The Ultra 5 is now the 45 SKU. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. And if you want to build yourself the best bang for buck create a PC, then there are some guidelines in the description below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.